words you see on the screen are quoted from a former student, Jay, from last semester, from his final portfolio in a writing and rhetoric course. He wrote, quote, "I saw many things from my peers that I included in my essay, as well as things I didn't want to replicate. This was extremely helpful because it allowed me to see where I can improve my essay, as well as steer clear of mistakes," end quote. I'm still trying to make these opaque words intelligible. Jay's close friend and partner, whom I'll call Chris, wrote polished prose that was in sharp contrast to Jay's often imperfect, clearly youthful, and always exuberant drafts. Jay and Chris sat next to each other in every class. They were each other's first readers and peer reviewers. Last semester was the first semester I kept students in consistent groups. I did so because in the first 2 weeks of class, one student made it clear to me and everyone in the class that she would rather choose silence than share drafts with peers she didn't want to open up to. This student, whom I'll call Bella, shared enthusiastically when I paired her with a student she sat next to since day one of the class. I remember saying to myself and then to her, "Does this pairing feel better?" She nodded. What changed last semester when I stopped shuffling students around into new groups with unfamiliar faces was that I made a trade-off. I traded new ideas and faces for the recognition, "You again?" to a familiar face. There will always be trade-offs when we decide to make changes in our courses. Sarah Silverman of the brilliant blog, Substack, Beyond the Scope, discusses these trade-offs as the inevitable access friction that can enhance the learning experiences of some while potentially diminishing those of others. I'm making peace with trade-offs, and I'm always looking for living exemplars to learn from. In fact, just like Jay learning from Chris that he didn't want to write polished, even auto-tune prose for our course, I'm standing here today largely unbothered because I learned from one of my best friends who stayed up all night in a panic practicing her conference paper, convinced a famous scholar she admired would come to our panel. There were only other grad students there. What I learned from my closest collaborators is that worrying myself into sleeplessness was worth steering clear of. I'd be remiss if I didn't also include that she's published that conference paper, and that is one of the many things I admire about her, value, and seek to exemplify myself. Yes, 16 years ago, my two closest grad school friends and I took our best seminar papers to the Western States Rhetoric and Literacy Conference in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We stopped outside of the Basilica San Albino and the Old Mesilla after the conference ended. I sat next to Rachel and Roseanne in many grad school seminars, and whenever collaboration was possible, we worked together. That's a little sad that it took me 15 years to apply everything I knew about the ability to collaborate again and again and again.